I've got this new favorite commercial on TV. It's for a product called Mio, and it's really a strange commercial. But this product changes everything. That's kind of their tagline, because you put a little of it into water and suddenly your water becomes something different. And I have to admit to you, I'm not a big water guy because it doesn't have any flavor. Have you ever tried to explain the flavor of water? It gives you a headache because there is no flavor. It's flavorless. It's boring. It's kind of mundane, right? And that's a word that a lot of us use all of the time. And we use it specifically in the first definition for that word. It goes something like this: lacking in excitement, boring, dull. That's the dictionary definition. But if you go down to the second definition, it says earth, not heaven, which is fascinating to me, that we would call the earth mundane, and what's exciting is heaven. But that is really important to hold both of those definitions together. Here's why: because nobody wants to live a mundane life, a boring, dull, lacking excitement life. What we really want, whether we would use these words or not, is to live at the intersection of heaven and earth, where our life that we sometimes think is boring or lacking excitement actually meets heaven and becomes something more than what we think we have at our disposal. Because you look at your story, you look at your characteristics, your personality, and you go, I don't have anything to offer. I don't have anything that's going to make a difference in the world. I'm just kind of blah, like water. But Jesus offers the opportunity to change everything, to help us find the intersection between heaven and earth and make our lives more than we feel they are. Take our personalities, our stories, and all of that and turn them into something else. It reminds me of this one time Jesus went to a wedding celebration. And you've got to understand something about first century Jewish weddings. They lasted for a week. Can you imagine that? A wedding reception that went for a week? And there were new people all the time. So it was always a hopping party because the people there at the end of the week were different from the beginning. And there's one thing that you want to make sure that never happens at a wedding party like that. You never want to run out of wine. That was the tradition, and it was the groom's responsibility to make sure that there was enough wine to last for all the guests throughout the entire celebration. But this guy ran out, and Mary, Jesus' mother, kind of comes to the rescue and decides she's going to help solve the problem, and she goes to Jesus. And they have a little bit of a back and forth, but the discussion ends with Mary looking at the servants and saying, do whatever he says. And I just imagine her saying with kind of like a knowing smirk, because it's probably going to be outside your box. It's not going to be what you expected, but he's going to do something great here. And so Jesus looks at these big ceremonial washing jars that were over to the side, probably held about 150 gallons total. And he says, I want you to go fill those jars with water. Now imagine what the servant's thinking. Well, we don't need water. We need wine. That's what we're after here. That's what you're supposed to help us with. He says, no, I want you to go fill them with water. And what's crazy is they do what he said. They're obedient. They listen, even though it didn't make sense to them. And they go and they fill the water jars. And then Jesus says, now I want you to go and give some of that to the grand master of ceremonies. And I just imagine the hesitancy that those guys had and were feeling. But they go and they pour it into this guy's glass, and he takes a sip and he just explodes with, this is the best wine I've ever had. And most people serve the good stuff at the very beginning and then the cheap stuff later in the week. But not you. You give the best stuff at the end. You see, Jesus had turned that water into wine. He took something boring and blah and flavorless and mundane, and he made it into something majestic. And so this groom that had messed up now all of a sudden is a hero. This groom that was boring and dull and wasn't bringing much to the party all of a sudden was the hero of the story, in the guest's mind at least. But that's not even the most important part of that story. The most important part is the last sentence. That last sentence says something to this effect. That was the first time Jesus revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. That's why Jesus takes mundane things and turns them into majestic things, so that people will believe. And what's so cool is that he does that with people. What Jesus did with that wine, he does with people. He takes mundane stories, people that think they're lacking in excitement, and he does miraculous things with them. And then they get to stand as kind of the testament to who Jesus is and what he does in lives, and change lives. People listen. And so this is what it might look like for you. Every once in a while, sit down and take inventory, detect what's missing in your life, and bring that to Jesus and say, we're missing fill in the blank. And then offer him whatever you do have, because that's what happened at the party. Here's the jars and here's the servants, and Jesus took those things that nobody else thought were much and made them into something great. And then do what he tells you to do. And then divulge what he's done. Make sure that everybody knows about it. Display his glory so that Jesus might use you, like he did that wine, to help others believe. That's the miracle that Jesus invites us to be a part of what he's doing. So remember, Jesus takes the mundane, turns it into majestic, yourself included.